What is up, my friends? Thank you so much for joining me here today. I know I didn't give a whole lot of notice as to doing this. It was just something on my heart. To everyone who will be watching here on Instagram, hello, and on Facebook, welcome to my living room. Welcome to my house. You see my Christmas tree behind me. So if you see me kind of going up and forth like this, it's just because I am talking to you through two different screens here. So obviously, I wanted to get on and talk about a couple of things because it has been a hard time here in Lee County lately. It has been a struggle as we have been able to, we've been witnessing some tragedy here in our community. And it's not easy, but obviously it's something that we want to be able to address. And so first of all, I want to say that my heart goes out to the Davis family and the Gambino family for the tragedies that you have suffered. And this is not to say that if you have not suffered a tragedy prior to this, I know my friends, the Fullers, have also experienced tragedy in their life. And my heart goes out to you, and I commend you for the work that you are doing in sharing the message to be able to say, hey, this is real, and what is going on in our community and in our world is not okay. So I put some thoughts together for us. I wanted to go about 30 minutes. We'll go until about 6:30. For those of you that are Cowboy fans, I know that the game will be starting shortly, but just set it to DVR. I'm a Cowboys fan. They're going to be losing anyways. God help us. So, but anyways, I just wanted to take a few minutes. And after this, I would encourage you to join my good friends, Ty and Heather Bean over at Cowboy Junction Church. They'll be starting their live stream at 6:30 on Instagram and Facebook, so I hope you'll join them. But listen, I wanted to address a couple of things. For those of you who follow me on social media here on Facebook, on Instagram, you know that mental health is a big thing that I talk about for the past 3+ years. I write a column for the newspaper. You can see that on the first and third Sunday of every month. For almost 5 years, I produced a radio show and podcast called Untucked with Steve. You see that I talk about it on social media ad nauseum, just about how much it is important to be talking about not about social media, about mental health and eliminating the stigma that is associated with this. Now, obviously, we have been hit hard here in Lee County. I don't know where you're watching. You can put it in the chat and let us know where you're watching from on Facebook or on Instagram, and let me know where you're watching from. I would appreciate that. And just wanted to say that I've seen so many of the posts. I've seen so many of you sharing your story. I've seen so many of you offer your condolences and your heartfelt prayers. And let me just tell you, folks, I think it's absolutely wonderful that we are doing this. I think it's absolutely wonderful that we're talking about mental health. But what I wanted to get on and really focus on more than that is what happens after this. What happens with the discussion after the sting of what we have felt in our community collectively starts to kind of dissipate and kind of starts to fade away just a little bit? Because this is what's super important. Here where I am seated in my house in Lee County, right in the heart of the Permian Basin, can we agree or not agree that around here we have developed and lived through a very machismo, put your boots on, put your big girl panties on, and just go handle it? You've heard that. You've probably told somebody that before, where you're saying, quit being a sissy. You got to man up. You got to buck up. You got to go handle it. But what I am suggesting to us tonight, whether you're male or female, is not so much but man up, but man down. How many of us have pretended to stand on our feet, smiling through it all and pretending to be okay when we're not okay? How many of us have done that before? How many of us have tried to put on the brave face, but we are dying or being torn apart on the inside? And family, the time has come. And I do say family because we're watching here. We're all together. The time has come to be real and transparent. Transparency, and I made a couple notes here, and I'll make them available after this if you want. I'll send them to you. Transparency is allowing someone to see what's really going on the inside of you. Vulnerability is allowing someone to see inside and speak into your life. Okay? Friend, you were never intended to go through this life alone. I don't know if you're people of faith. I don't know where your level of faith is, but let me tell you this. God wants us to have thriving, life-giving relationships. We should have an arsenal of friends that we can pull out to get the support we need for whatever situation we are facing right now. Let me tell you something. I mentioned this in a message that I spoke in December of 2019, 1 year ago. I've written about it in columns. I've posted about it on social media. I've talked about it on my radio show and my podcast. Listen, loneliness is actually causing a health epidemic. You ready for this? And it's not just tied to depression, anxiety, and suicide, which are at all-time highs, but they're causing cardiovascular issues, sleep deprivation, and premature deaths are all being connected to loneliness. Why? Because we were never designed to do life alone. And let me tell you this, and you can put it in the chat and let me know if you agree or not. We live in a time where communication has never been easier, but the more communication types we have, the less connection we seem to have. We live in a time where communication has never been easier, but the more communication types we have seems to produce less connection. The internet is wonderful. It's allowing you and I to connect right now. Hi, Facebook. Hi, Instagram. But the internet also disconnects people at a close distance. How many times are you with someone and all that they are is on their phones? There is no more this anymore. In 2018, one of the things that I was involved in, I was a college professor. I was teaching business. I taught 2 business classes. And one of the things that I challenged my students when you could actually still go out to eat at a restaurant in New Mexico was the next time you're going out to eat with someone, everyone takes their cell phones and puts them face down on the dinner table. The first person to reach for their phone has to pay for dinner. Think about it. Think about the FOMO that you feel, the fear of missing out by not being connected to someone, but really there are 3 people in front of you who want to learn about you, but yet we're so connected to our phones, right? I'm there too. So listen, here is a lie that we tell ourselves when we're struggling. Here is a lie that we tell ourselves when we're going through a valley. Nobody needs to know. I need to keep it a secret. If I admit that I need help, then everyone will think less of me. What are people going to think about me? It's such a lie. No one needs to know. I'll keep it a secret. You know what? Shame, because you're ashamed of it, shame is like mold. It grows in the dark. When you bring life into the light with the right people, you will find love, hope, help, and fellowship. But oftentimes we want to keep it a secret because you're like, if I admit that I need help, what are people going to think? Family, friends, can I say this? The fear of what other people think is the number one prison that people in this country and around the world are imprisoned in. And the thing is, it's a self-imprisonment. No one else puts us there. No one else puts us in the prison of what other people are going to think. And it is the fear and the thought of what other people think that keeps us in isolation, that keeps us in shame, that keeps us bound and keeps us away from friends, family, and professional help that we need in order to break free. So I'm going to say something. To hell with what people think about your struggle and the validity of your mental health. It is so much better for you to reach up and reach out to get the help that you need instead of us planning your funeral. Hear me, people. The fear of being judged by people is strong, but you and I have a choice to make. Would we rather be concerned with what the opinions of strangers in a free app on our phone think? Or would it matter more to get the help, the healing, and the community that we need to be free? Okay? Listen, we may not always get to choose what we go through in life, but we do get to choose who we go through it with. Let me say that again. We may not always get to choose what we go through in life, but we do get to choose who we go through it with. So my question is, who are you going through life with? Who are you going through life with? Well, Steve, I don't have any friends. Have you shown yourself friendly? Have you shown yourself friendly? Well, no one comes and talks to me. Well, have you talked to anybody? Have you reached out to anybody to be like, hey, could we FaceTime? Could we Zoom? Could we go sit outside at a park? Can we talk? Listen, God has given us many beautiful gifts in life. And you know what one of the greatest ones is? Friendship. Friendship is one of the greatest gifts that God gives us. And listen, if you're going at life alone and you feel like something is missing, friend, it is. Something is missing. It's connection. It is friendships. And not only does your support system needs to be based on the right thing, it needs to be formed before the crisis, right? If you've ever been in school or college and you start cramming the night before for a test and you don't do that well, is there any really secret as to why we didn't do well? Because we didn't have the systems in place. Because you see, when crisis strikes, we should be able to pull from what's within us instead of grabbing at things and going, what in the hell am I supposed to do? And sorry for swearing, but obviously this is something that we need to understand. Listen, do we have to risk to have friendships? Yes. Could we get hurt? Yes. But if you build your support system right, the reward is so much greater than the risk. The reward is so much greater than the risk. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you a couple of resources, but one of them I want to make you aware of. I mentioned the podcast that I did for almost 5 years. We produced 100 shows, and episode 97 is the single greatest episode we ever produced. I had my dear friend and co-pastor of my church, Heather Bean, who is on right now. Hi, Heather. And again, like I told you guys, at 6:30, I hope you'll jump on over to Cowboy Junction and join Ty and Heather for their live stream. But what I want to say is this. If you've not listened to episode 97 for the first 45 minutes, Heather and I jumped deep into mental health, deep into the discussion of mental health. I've said it before, many of you here. I went through depression for 18 months, for all of 2017 and half of 2018. It was dark. And I'm telling you, there were times I thought I would never get out of the pit. I thought I would never get better. But you know what? I didn't get myself out of the pit. I didn't believe this horse crap of just, you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and be a man and you got to get on with it, Steve. You can't let anybody know that you're hurting. That mentality right there has ended so many lives, not just in Lee County, but everywhere, because they just had to buck up. They just had to be a big girl and deal with it rather than reaching out for help. Listen to it. You can go to my website, stevesauceda.com. At the very top, click on podcasts and click on episode 97 and listen to the first 45 minutes. And I promise you won't be disappointed. So listen, we live in a time, and this is so important about social media, and I want to address this right now. We live in a time where it has never been easier to pretend that everything is okay. We can even create an entire persona so that no one ever has to know the truth about what we're struggling with. Am I telling the truth or am I telling the truth? We live in a time where it's never been easier to pretend that everything is okay. We can even create an entire persona so that no one ever has to know the truth about what we're struggling with. You can encourage everyone as the day is long on social media, but if you are not getting encouragement yourself, you are missing out. You are missing out. It is one thing to post on social media and express your condolences and tell someone, hey, if you need somebody, reach out. I'm here. But here's where the rubber meets the road, friends. Who are you reaching out to? Who are you connecting with? It's not enough to encourage others to reach out to you if you yourself are not reaching out to someone. And if you are a parent listening to this and watching me right now, I know that when you see tragedy strike, it hits home for you. especially when you're familiar with the families, because you start to wonder, could this happen to my kid? Could this happen to my daughter? Could this happen to my son? Listen, mental health is no respecter of persons. We are all susceptible to falling prey to the thoughts that betray us and the thoughts that come at us. But let me tell you something to the parents. I don't have kids, okay? I don't have kids. I'm not going to try to pretend to be a parent, but here's what I can say. Parents, it starts with you. It starts at home. If you want your kids to be transparent and vulnerable, my question to you is, are you transparent and are you vulnerable with your kids? How can you expect them to be something with you that you are not with them? It starts at home. And here's another thing that my friend Heather and I talk about all the time. People are not mind readers. Your spouse, not a mind reader. Your best friend, not a mind reader. The people who follow you on social media, not mind readers. Colleagues, not mind readers. How can we support each other if we don't know what's going on with one another? How can we even celebrate you if you keep it private? People aren't mind readers, friends. And especially if you walk around like this, how's it going? Man, I'm good. I'm good. How are you? And you switch the subject because something is going on the inside of you, but you don't want to tell anyone because you're going, what are they going to think about me? And can I tell you something? The people that you think don't struggle just as much as you do, if not more. They just know how to hide it better behind a pretty white smile and go, hi, I'm good, man. How are you? This is a true story. About 2 months ago, when we could actually still go in a grocery store unimpeded, I ran into someone. We had our mask and I looked at him. I said, bro, how are you doing? He said, Steve, I am doing fantastic. I am doing wonderful. And I looked at him. I said, time out. I said, bro, what's the secret? What are you doing to be so fantastic and so wonderful that the rest of us in our lives have not been doing the past 7 months? Teach me, share it with me. I'll Venmo you the money if you want me to. And he stopped and he goes, Steve, I'm not fantastic. I'm not great. My wife and I are struggling. My kids are failing in school. I don't know if I'm going to have a job next week. And we got to talking right there in the middle of the grocery store. Why? Not because I'm anything special, but because I was willing to go beyond the surface. Are you willing to go beyond the surface for people that you love, for people in your world? My pastor and friend, Ty Bean, he and I were conversing about this one time over the phone during the pandemic. And oftentimes we feel, well, if we can't do it for everybody, then I shouldn't do it for anybody. No, friend, what I am saying is this. We cannot reach everybody, but we can reach somebody. Who can you reach? The people in your world, in your circle of influence, and actually stopping to take the time and caring and, dare I say, giving a damn about what's going on with someone and saying, how are you? And they'll be like, good, how are you? Be like, no, listen to me. How are you? I'm asking, because the people closest to you, if you'll let them in, they will know that there is more to that silence of actually saying, how are you? And stopping the busyness of life to care about the people in our world and seriously asking, how are you? How many people might possibly still be here if they felt that someone cared, whether they lived or died? Okay, the enemy wants you to think that opening up will make you look weak and that honesty will weaken your relationships. The truth is, it will strengthen your relationships. A lot of times people think that vulnerability is a sign of weakness, but actually it's our most accurate measure of courage. Is that vulnerability with people that you trust and people who have earned your trust and that you've allowed to speak into your world. You are not meant to do this alone. You were meant to have a corner that you can go to before you go out in the ring. None of us are Superman. None of us are Wonder Women, no matter how much we want to try. And a couple other things I want to get into. Being vulnerable on social media, it's a start. Listen to me. It's a start. I'm vulnerable on social media, but being vulnerable on social media can be counterfeit vulnerability. Stick with me here. Because oftentimes people aren't likely trying to be vulnerable. They're trying to seek validation. And the way you know it's not true vulnerability is because every time you do it, you still feel empty and nothing changes. Vulnerability takes courage. Validation is seeking likes. Okay? If you want to really get to know someone, I'm going to say what I always say. 2 ears, 1 mouth. In math, we have ratios 2 to 1. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Why? We are designed to listen twice as much as we talk. When you consider our physiology of the anatomy of our 2 ears and our 1 mouth, do you realize that your ears never close, but your mouth does? That ought to tell us something. That we should listen way more than we talk. You'll learn something. You'll learn something about the people in your world if you'll stop talking long enough and listen and ask informed questions. Vulnerability is being real with a real life person. It is saying to a trusted friend who has earned the right to hear your honesty, not just anyone and not everyone, that you are not doing okay. Friend, it's okay to not be okay. Okay? The enemy wants you to think that vulnerability will hurt your relationships, but vulnerability with a trusted friend will strengthen your relationship with them. If I am your friend, I'm asking you, if I'm your friend, how do I know you need help if you keep everything covered up? I shared this story before, but I'll share it really quick. We've got about 8 minutes left. When I was battling depression, I remember I was driving my car, and for people who live here in Lee County, I was driving on Grimes. I was going past Del Norte. Del Norte was to my left, and I was crying, like eyes red, swollen, snot coming everywhere, and I was angry. I was mad at God. I was mad at people, and I kept screaming out, God, where is everybody? I've got fans, I've got followers, I've got people who come and hear me speak, and I've got no one. Where are my friends? Where is the family? And I heard that voice inside my heart. It wasn't a booming voice coming through my radio, but it was an impression I had in my heart. And it said this, Steve, I've sent people across your path. And when they ask you how you are, you lie and you smile and be like, man, I'm doing good. How are you? Why would they keep coming back? You can't get mad, friends, about the help that you're not getting from the help that you're not asking for. How are people supposed to know that you're struggling if you don't speak up? Okay? The people that love you and trust you want to walk with you through your trial. They want to come along beside you. They want to help you and support you. Listen to this. Covering up costs you intimacy in your relationships. Covering up costs you intimacy in your relationship. But listen, if you're the type that's always kept it bottled up, let me encourage you with something. Change is a process that takes consistency. But oftentimes we'd rather gain social media followers than develop real face-to-face relationships with people. I'll leave that one right there. We'd rather gain social media followers than develop real face-to-face relationships with people. You can't be vulnerable one time and think it's going to fix itself. Change comes when you feel that urge to cover up, withdraw, or fake it, but decide, no, I'm going to be honest and talk to someone about my situation. Listen, if you've backed yourself into a corner, it's okay to change your mind. What do you mean, Steve? It's okay to change your stance. Maybe you used to think that people who would tell you that they were struggling, that they were emotional to you, and then you thought they were being a baby and they just needed to get it together, and then tragedy strikes your world. It's okay to change your perspective and now become an advocate for mental health. And one of the things that I want to discuss really quick, it's something that I had put in my column. That's the second resource that I want to make available to you. I wrote a column that came out in this Sunday's newspaper, and it's called It's All in Your Head, in quotations. I put it in quotations. The paper didn't put it in quotations, but I wanted to put it this way. And so here's what I want to say. If you know someone who is struggling with anxiety, depression, or any form of mental health, here's some tips on what not to say. Okay, and if you missed some of them, you can go to the website, stevesauceda.com, click on columns, and it's called It's All in Your Head. Number one, do not say, come on, get over it already. Would you say that to someone who's battling cancer or heart issues? Of course you wouldn't. Number two, you're being a baby. There's nothing childish about a mental struggle. Number three, snap out of it. You're stronger than this. You don't think they've tried? Being strong has nothing to do with the struggle. Number four, it's all in your head. That's exactly where the battle is. You don't think they know where the struggle is? And number five, a big pet peeve, get your faith up. Pray more. Do you honestly have any idea the nature of their faith or their prayer life? And while we're on the subject of faith, for a long time, the church has seen mental illness as something that can be prayed away or healed if the person's suffering enough, spends enough time with God, or surrounds themselves with people who have greater faith. Let me just say something really quick. I believe that all answers begin and end with Jesus. But in the middle, there are doctors, there are therapists, there are counselors, there are recovery groups, there are echo groups, there are professional support groups, and even in cases, there is medication to get you the help that you need so that you can live your purpose out instead of living in isolation and believing the lies that you tell yourself when you're isolated. Friend, isolation is the worst possible counselor. Why? Because you're just believing the lies that the enemy is telling you. Many believe that real Christians don't struggle with depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts, but that simply isn't true. Depression is a real physical illness, and there's a real chance it's caused by a chemical imbalance happening in the brain. It's something that the person suffering did not choose. Statistically, in terms of suicide, men die 4 times more than women by suicide. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in people, you ready for this, between the ages of 10 and 34. The second. And the fourth leading cause of death for ages 35 to 54. On average, 132 Americans die by suicide every day, and annually 1.4 million attempted. Please don't think that it's just in their head. When tragedy strikes, we all want to get on it. But how about when you've moved on to something else? Because it's been said that Americans have short memories. What you do is you take one person every day and you reach out to them and you say, how you doing? And you actually stop to listen, to care. I would recommend face-to-face if possible. If not, second, use FaceTime, Zoom, or Skype. Third is text. Reach out. Show someone that you care. You cannot save everyone. We can't save anybody, but we can care about someone. Mental health does not discriminate. Anyone is susceptible. If we've been physically injured or not feeling well or in need of medical attention, we seek it. Yet when we're emotionally or mentally hurt, we tend to isolate ourselves. Our instinct is to run into isolation and hide and hope that maybe this will go away. But that's where the voices that are against us will rise up and be louder when you stay in isolation. And finally, I want to say this. People are often the most unlovable when they need love the most. People don't want to be talked out of their feelings. They want to be seen. They want to be felt. They want to be heard. And friend, they don't need a piece of your mind. They need a piece of your heart. And listen, we're all carriers of sorrow, struggle, and burdens that are hidden in the shadows and still chasing us from hard yesterdays. We're all unfinished, but I hope this helps you realize that you're not unseen. I see you, friend. I'm pulling for you. I'm praying for you. And perhaps the person that you're reaching out to isn't the one to help you, but don't stop there. Don't stop at the first person who can't help you. Keep going. Keep fighting. You ever been to a restaurant where you didn't get good service? You ever been to a movie theater that was dirty? Of course you have. But you didn't stop going to restaurants and you didn't stop going to movies. Don't let one person who doesn't know what to say keep you from getting the help that you need. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in and joining me.